Greetings, car fanatics. One of my biggest pet peeves are door dings. So when I first got my car in 2014, I spent about $600 to get rid of all of the door dings on my car, and since then I've done a pretty good job at avoiding door dings. So first, we're going to talk about parking spots and the most ideal parking spots to help you avoid door dings. The first type of parking spot is the end spot. And I'm not just talking about any end spot, but having an end spot without a curb. This is really important because you don't have a physical barrier that's stopping you from going past your parking spot line. So with the end spot that has no curb, you can actually get your wheels right on the line, and this is going to give you the maximum amount of space so the car next to you has a less chance of dinging your car. If you want to be a little bit more daring, you can park over that line by maybe a foot, and that should give you plenty of room. So overall, I really like the end spots with no curbs. Whether you're parking close to cars or away from cars, an end spot with no curb is definitely your best type of parking spot, and I highly recommend going for that one first. Next, if I can't find an end spot without a curb, I look for parallel parking. Now, parallel parking, you do have the chance of a car in front of you or behind you bumping into you, but the chances of that is much less than the chance of someone dinging your car. Now, if you are going to parallel park, definitely work on your parallel parking skills because you don't want to curb your wheels in the process or bump into the car behind you or in front of you. The next type of spot I look for is really finding a spot away from others. Now, finding a parking spot away from others is a good way to make sure no one parks next to you. You can find a spot out there and you're just going to be out there by yourself, so there really isn't a chance for someone to door ding you. However, in my experience, I'd say probably 20% of the time I have come back to my car only to find a car parked right next to me, despite the person having so many other parking spots to choose from. So that's why parking away from others isn't the top recommendation I have for you guys. It's kind of third on the list. Next, if you have to park close to people, you can look for an end spot that has a curb. Now, this is not as good as an end spot without a curb. However, an end spot with a curb is still better than parking in a normal parking spot because you can only have one person park on your side. Now, when I do park in an end spot without a curb, I'll try to get as close to the curb as possible, but you want to be careful not to curb your wheels because I think ultimately a door ding is much easier to fix than curbing your wheels, so definitely don't do that. Now, if you do park in an end spot nose forward, you would want to park on the right side of a vehicle if possible because there's always going to be a driver in the car and not every car will have a passenger, so that's one of the ways I further reduce the risk if I park in an end spot. Next, if you can't find any of these types of parking spots available, you can look for a parking spot right next to a handicap spot that doesn't have a person in it. So if you're going to a shopping center, it's less likely that someone's going to park in a handicap spot versus a regular spot. So this is why it can be beneficial to park right next to a handicap spot that doesn't have a car in it. And lastly, if you can't find any of these spots, your only option is to park in a normal spot that has cars on both sides. Now, I would try to find the biggest spot possible and center your car in the middle. This is going to give the most distance between both cars on each side to prevent you getting door dings. Moving on, let's talk about what you do in a situation when you do have to park next to other cars. So first, avoid parking next to shopping cart return areas. These types of parking spots are a recipe for disaster. You might have people trying to return their shopping carts and they might try to sneak their shopping cart by your car and in the process scratch it. Or someone might push a shopping cart into the shopping cart return area and miss, and it could hit your car, so that could do some damage. You definitely want to avoid those types of parking spots. If you can find a parking spot that has some type of physical barrier next to it, like a column or a pole, that could be a good way to avoid door dings as well. Because if you have a column or a pole next to you, this is going to limit how close the car next to you can park, as well as potentially providing a physical barrier between their door and your door. In addition, if you have to park next to other cars, you want to consider the condition of the cars around you. You don't want to park next to any hoopties that are all beat up because the owners are probably a little less careful with their car and will be less careful when it comes to opening their doors. Instead, try to park next to cars that are in good condition. Additionally, when you're parking next to these cars, there are a few other things you want to consider. The other thing to consider is whether the cars next to you will have to load or unload stuff into their car. So if you're going to Costco, there's a good chance that people are purchasing a lot of things and will have to load up their car. Now, if the car has a rear hatch, it's likely that they're going to put all that stuff into the back. But on the other hand, if they have a smaller car, they might need to use the back seats or even their passenger seats. So you want to consider loading in the mix because that could mean more doors opening and more chances for you to get a door ding. And finally, consider the length of the car doors that you're parking next to. If you're parking next to a long coupe like a Corvette, those doors are long and they're going to require more space to open out, and that's going to increase the likeliness of you getting a door ding. On the other hand, if you're parking next to a 4-door Mini Cooper, these doors are a lot shorter and pose less of a risk to your car. Well, there you have it, car fanatics. I wanted to share my tips on how I avoid door dings. Now, you don't have to go crazy when trying to avoid door dings, but I find if you can put some of these tips into practice, it's just going to prevent door dings and keep your car looking better longer. So these are just some of my tips on how I avoid door dings, but I want to hear from you guys on how you avoid door dings. So let me know in the comment section below how you avoid door dings. Thanks for watching, Car Fanatics. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Leave any questions or comments below.